This episode of the HooperCast is brought to you by Letterboxd. Right now, listeners of our show have the chance to win a free 1-year pro account upgrade on Letterboxd. For those of you who don't know, Letterboxd is a social network for film lovers that allows you to track, rate, and review the films you watch. You can follow other members to get recommendations. You can publish lists of films like your top 10 for the year and a lot more. Letterboxd is free to use. There's no subscription fee, but a pro account is going to provide you with additional features such as a customized summary of your past year's viewing. If you already have an account, then you get a 1-year extension free. If you want to enter, all you have to do is listen to our show and we will read the code word at random. Then you're going to send us an email at hoopercast@gmail.com, enter the code word in the subject line of the email, and make sure you include your Letterboxd username. The winner will be selected during the last show of each month. You can also follow our show on Letterboxd. Just search HooperCast. That's letterboxd.com, letterboxd.com, letterboxd.com. Woo! You're damn right, everybody. It's the HooperCast Live. That was a good piece of meatloaf I just ate, Dustin. I can't hear you. I think you still muted your mic.
Nah.
You didn't?
No, that wasn't me.
Nah, man. That ain't me.
I was saying meatloaf sounds delicious. I had pizza.
Dude, this is good meatloaf. This is, have you ever heard of Freshly? They are not a sponsor of the show, by the way, but
I have heard of Freshly.
Well, this is Freshly meatloaf, and it is freshly good.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
that sounds good.
For anyone who doesn't know, they deliver stuff that's essentially, they're sort of like TV dinners, but they're really good dinners.
Yeah, better prepared.
High definition TV dinners.
Yeah, there you go.
High definition taste.
In 4K.
You know, they should sponsor us. That was a hell of a read, wasn't it?
That really was.
Don't you want some now?
Yeah, off the cuff. That was pretty nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you're watching live right now, then it's clearly Wednesday night.
Yep.
If you're not watching live, then it's at least Friday, July 13th. Happy birthday to my younger brother. And yeah, so it's the HooperCast. It's me and Dustin. If you are watching us right now and you don't know what this is our show. Dustin and I have been doing this for about 7 years, Dustin?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, about 7 years. And we're talking about movies. And we're talking about movies we like, movies we appreciate. And then,
do you happen to know what number, like what episode number this is? I know it's gone through so many iterations.
This is episode 169.
Holy cow!
Yeah, man, we've been through the ringer. We'll be creeping up on 200 before the end of the year.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're gonna have to do something special for 200, like get James Gunn on or something.
I'll get right on that. That's gonna be a tough one.
Okay. All right.
Anyways, we're going to talk about a couple movies in this show tonight. If the lag is getting to you, I understand. We do have a full audio version of this show that'll be on iTunes shortly, or Breaker, or Castbox, or Google Play. Or actually, now we're on Spotify too, Dustin. So wherever you get your podcasts, you can find the HooperCast. So yeah, no worries, no need to stick around. But this live video will be gone probably about an hour after the stream finishes. So you'll have to wait till a certain amount of time in the future. Actually, you can go to Patreon and get the full video, but we're going to talk about all that kind of stuff later. We're not going to bug people right now with all the salesy junk.
Right.
So Dustin, we both saw The Incredibles 2.
We did.
And we're here to talk about it today. Your first attempt at seeing this film was a failed one because you had car trouble.
Correct.
As previously discussed.
Yes.
So it probably felt good to sit down and not have car trouble.
It did. No, we went, and everything went well. I mean, so I do have a story for you though that I think you will find interesting. I hope the viewers do too, but I know that you will, because I know you are a glutton for stories like this.
I'm also a glutton because I am eating dinner right now.
You are a glutton as well, for meatloaf apparently. So long story short, because I could expound on this, but I want to keep it succinct. Sarah and I, my wife, we sat down and we were like, okay, this is a good seat. Like everything's great. And then a few minutes in, I think it was like four, I don't know, maybe like late high school, maybe like freshmen in college girls sat down in front of us. And like, I thought, okay, maybe it won't be too bad. Like they're talking through some of the trailers, whatever. I mean, that's fine. They're trailers. I still don't like it, but okay, they'll shut up for the movie.
You're naive, Dustin.
But like during the trailers and stuff, they're like Snapchatting and like literally like taking out their phones and like, doing the whole thing. And like flashes are going off like in the theater, like towards us. And I'm like, first of all, we're behind you. So do with a front facing camera, at least, please. And secondly, don't do it. Like, just don't do that. And so during the movie, like there was a few times where they were, a little off putting, but they were by and large okay. And then at the end of the movie, they decided that it would be really funny. And I know this is going to make you laugh, because it's so funny, that it would be hilarious if they stood up and cheered at various points. So that's what happened. And it was really one girl in particular who like stood up and was like, yeah, and like cheering and, making a fool of herself. But she got her comeuppance because once like the credits hit, her friends were filming this too, by the way, like filming her cheering at the end of The Incredibles, which I kind of wanted to lean forward and go, you're pirating this movie right now. I did not, but anyway, so they're like, filming her or whatever. And they're going to put it on Snapchat. And the girl who was doing the cheering then looked at the video on one of her friends' phones and immediately, like, because this is how loud they were being, like we understood what they were saying. She immediately shut it down because she noticed that she had massive pit stains and did not want that on Snapchat. So she got her comeuppance. Like she was like raising her arms, like cheering, and there's just like sweat, like pouring. And so she was like, "Don't put that on Snapchat." Oh my gosh. And I was just like, "That's what you get. You get to feel bad about your pit stains now." And then through the credits they were like Snapchatting and doing flashes again and stuff. And I'm like, I know it's the credits, but again, you're pirating this film and stop.
They were doing the Snapchats, but they had their elbows to their sides.
Yeah, they were all just like
John McCain.
Yes.
I know that's why he doesn't Snapchat.
Right, correct.
The pit stains.
He just needs a selfie stick, and then he can hold it like.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that's the type of experience we had in this film. But we did still have a good time. But that's what happens when you go to the theater now.
Yeah, no kidding, dude. We my wife. This is a rare event as well. My wife actually. This thing. There we go. Get up there. We actually saw this movie in the theaters as well, obviously in the theaters, or I would have been guilty of pirating it myself.
You were watching those girls' Snapchats, right?
Yeah, I sent them. They were plants from me. I sent them to test you.
Oh, gotcha.
We saw this at the Nexus Theater, the Nexus Theater in Mobile off of Cody, which if you've been there, you know that the good thing about the Nexus is that they serve alcohol, but because they serve alcohol, they do not allow unaccompanied minors in the theater.
Sweet.
So even if you are a teetotaler, you get the added bonus of adults always being present. So there's no shenanigans like that. So, we really enjoyed that. We had, we ate something. I think I had like a taco or something. No, I had a Greek salad during this film. A Greek salad.
Sounds amazing.
And I had a whiskey sour for this movie. Yeah. So,
Sounds
great experience. So, let's get into the film.
Somebody had a good time.
I know. I've just been burned by too many. I've like every single review almost, before Infinity War, which was my first film at the Nexus. Every time we've done a movie review where it's a new release and I saw it. Yeah. If you go back and listen to the episodes, everybody, it starts with me going, okay, here's what happened during my screening. Yep. And I think the crown jewel was was Logan.
Yes.
When the guys came in and the cops showed up, and I'm trying to watch the climax of the film.
Right. And just it takes you completely out.
Yeah, it did, and I had to come back to the theater to watch Guardians of the Galaxy because they gave me a free voucher, and I'm too cheap to throw it away.
Right.
All right, let's get into the film. This is The Incredibles 2. It is also directed by Brad Bird, right, Dustin?
Yes, and written by Brad Bird.
And okay, did he write the first one?
I think so.
Some story credit.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is 14 years after the original Incredibles film. So this is a pretty long time between movies.
Yeah.
I mean, even the Toy Story films weren't this long.
No. They say they were just waiting for the right story and the right time, and the movie itself picks up moments after the first film.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was worth the wait.
Isn't it nice that filmmakers actually said, you know what, we're gonna take our time with this and do it the right way. This is one of two examples I can think of in recent memory where a film, both animated films that have done that, and one is this film, and the other is Rango, where they just were like, you know what, we're just gonna make this film for as long as it takes to make it, and we're having a good time, so that's okay, and just to have the freedom and the flexibility to do that is crazy.
It's awesome. And I think that speaks to Pixar. I mean, I know a lot of people have, including myself a little bit, have been a little jaded recently with Pixar. It's like, okay, you're doing Toy Story 4 and you've got, Cars 3 and all that stuff. And it's just like, for me though, I still trust that they're doing something that they at least enjoy. And so what I love about the fact that it was this long gap of time is that nobody, it seemed, at the studio was saying like, Brad, you have to do this. It was him saying, okay, I'm ready. And that's better to me. Now, the fact that there's Cars 2 and Cars 3 and Monsters University and all these sequels and prequels now, I still believe with all of them that the filmmaker was ready for each of those. It wasn't necessarily the studio saying, okay, you have to. So yeah, I think it says a lot to Pixar.
I came across a video the other day talking about Brad Bird as a filmmaker, and he just seems like one of those guys who's just doing movies right. With action filmmaking, but also really dynamic storytelling.
Yeah, he definitely understands character, and I mean, you could go back to the Iron Giant and realize like the characters in in that specific film, no matter how big or small those characters were, they had personality and they had desires and they had distinct voices, and I think that that's just a hallmark of a good storyteller. And I think you couple that with the fact that he's actually a good director. You have somebody special.
Well, let's get into the plot of this film. So as you said, this film takes place right after the events of the first film, which if you've seen the first movie, you know that the movie ended with them at Dash's track meet, and then the Underminer attacks whatever city they live in. Yep. And
Metroville, I think.
What generic comic book city. Yeah. And so that's how the film begins. They confront him, stuff happens, and basically the superhero protection program that they're sort of a part of that was like the last straw kind of. So they're kind of on their own. But then once again, they're approached by some sort of shady third party or seemingly shady third party where they enlist one of the supers to do undercover superhero work. But this time, instead of Bob, instead of Mr. Incredible working, essentially just to earn money for his family, which was the first film, it is actually Elastigirl. It's Ellen, who they want to do the work. Because the goal of this endeavor is to put a good face back on hero work. And since Mr. Incredible is a collateral risk, they would rather Elastigirl, who's a lot more politically palatable, clean cut, by the book. They want her to actually be the flagship for this program. So it's an incredibly well-timed Well, then again, I mean, it's sort of been a thing that, the people have been trying to do for years in cinema, which is get more women in
Yeah.
these stories. And so it really does that for you, where it puts Ellen at the forefront in the action, right there on her motorcycle, as you can see. And it puts Bob in charge of the kids,
Right.
because it's that classic. And it's weird. This is another film, Dustin, that I found that somehow strangely, the first one again was Logan.
Yeah.
But this is another film I've seen recently that somehow strangely mirrors my own life.
Yeah.
This is, I'm looking at Bob just juggling these kids at home and not really having a clue what he's doing in the beginning. And that's, the whole time I was like, man, I feel you, dude.
Right. Well, yeah. And he's got the older girl and the younger son. And yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see it.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
So what's great about this movie is you really get to explore Bob's growth as a parent. Because before, it was a journey for him, sort of from complacency back into like sort of being engaged as a husband and a father, and having a purpose again. But for this one, it's really like, it's not about him being Mr. Incredible anymore. It's about him being.
It's about them serving a larger cause.
Yes.
Which is like superheroes in general.
Yes.
As opposed to saving necessarily the family. But I'll tell you what, so when The Incredibles 2, like the trailers first started, there's, I think, a little bit, I mean, obviously not to like the Ghostbusters extent, but like a little bit of backlash on like, well, why is, Helen at the forefront of this one and, whatever. And I think that's a fundamental misunderstanding of these films. I think that it makes complete and total sense to have her be the protagonist here, because Bob was the protagonist in the first film. And if Bob had continued to be the protagonist of the second film, then it would have been Bob's franchise. But by having Helen be the protagonist here, it reiterates that the family is the protagonist. It's not any one of them. It's any one of them. Does that make sense? Like, it's not any one of them. It's any one of them.
Yeah.
So I think, if you have an Incredibles 3, it would make complete total sense for Violet to be the protagonist, or Dash, or whatever. But I think that was an incredibly smart choice, because you don't want this to be Bob's story again. Right.
It seems like it is whoever is in need of the most growth is sort of the one who gets the front seat.
Yeah.
So, in the first film, it was Bob. Bob was the only one who was dissatisfied, or the most dissatisfied with living a normal life. Yeah. And now that they're in the predicament they're in, it's really Ellen who, I mean, again, and they face more challenges at home, continuing the theme of, the kids really shouldn't be using their powers, but at the same time, it's like, but this is who these kids are. And we're not just going to tell them to not be exceptional just because people don't like it, basically, which is a good theme. So it's like, well, how do you express yourself if your expression of self is prohibited? And so they both are motivated to enact this change. Mm-hmm. But it's Ellen who has a much more direct role. I mean, the best way for them to do that is for Bob to stay out of the way, and for Ellen to be the one who's out there saving people. Yeah. And we get a little bit more Frozone in this movie too, which is cool.
Yeah, totally. So what did you think overall? Like, I don't know if you want to go ahead and give me your star rating, but what did you think overall?
Overall for this movie, I think, what did I give it? I wrote it down somewhere. I gave it, well, of course, God, every time I click over to my notes, dude, I swear, like it gives me that pinwheel. Yeah. All I'm doing is clicking on a program and it won't even do that. Okay, well, I think I gave it, I don't remember. I think I gave it a 3.5. Okay. Yeah, what do you, I can't find my notes. You go ahead. I got you. You go ahead.
So I would say a 4. I think to give it a 3 would be just inappropriate. And to give it a 5 would be inappropriate. I would give the first one a 5. I'd give this one a 4. I think that if anything, what The Incredibles 2 did best was remind me how perfect the first film is. Mm-hmm. And I watched it, leading up to this one, and on the big screen, no less. And it was absolutely just as good, if not better, than it ever has been. It absolutely holds up. The animation is beautiful. All of the showcasing of the powers was, so smart and groundbreaking, and I think that this one maybe doesn't have as much, groundbreaking. It doesn't break new ground in terms of anything really, but it does give us a good solid story that's made up of very interesting and lovable characters, and those characters learn things and grow, and it espouses the belief that family is important, and that each person in the family unit is an individual and part of the unit, and I think that that message is beautiful, and that really everything the film had to say was beautiful. I think, maybe overall, like we mentioned before, the fact that the story is maybe more about saving a larger cause may, at least in my mind, make it feel a little less focused. And that may be a detriment, but at least for me, but yeah, I can't go below a 4 on this one.
Yeah, I gave it a 3.5.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
And I thought it was a really great continuing story for the family. As I said, it's a really, as the first one is, it's a really good marriage story.
Yeah.
Like I said about the shifting roles within the marriage, especially in contemporary days. Although this is pretty clearly set in the 60s.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Because you mentioned marriage, I hate to cut you off, but because you mentioned marriage, can I just, so I saw an article, and I don't remember where this was from. I want to say, well, I won't say. Anyway, I don't remember where this article was from, but the article was essentially Helen needs to leave Bob right now, was like the headline.
Oh, fantastic. And
the whole thing was about like how at the beginning, when she's chosen over him, how he kind of has to grit his teeth and like bear it. They're like a husband should never have to do that about his wife. She needs to leave him. She deserves better, like blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, that to me is the absolute opposite of what these films are about and what these films say. These films are about like, hey, your partner has a problem. You give them grace and allow them to grow. Yeah. And by the end of the 90 minutes, they will have grown. And I think that anyway, sorry.
No,
sorry
it's
to
fine.
derail.
It's okay. Like you're right. I mean, it really is about sticking together, if nothing else. He grimaces, but it's not like, oh, great, the woman is in charge. It's more like, oh, like I'm just used to like my strength being able to solve everyone's problems.
Right.
That's literally what I did in the last movie, and that was a happy ending.
Well, and you have to think like Bob's the kind of guy who would be picked first in every sporting event and who would be the most popular.
He's very proud.
Yeah, and he's a larger than life personality. And I think, look at his size. Like he can't go anywhere without being noticed. And I think that to put him in the back seat, it's not that he didn't want to be behind his wife, and it's not that he didn't want to support her. It's that he's not used to being second. Yeah. He's not used to coming in second ever. And so I think that completely fits his character. And by the end of it, he's okay. It's not like at the end of it, he's still like, oh, you stupid woman, like get back in the, like, that's not what this film is. If that's what it was, then there's a problem. But anyway, sorry, I derailed it. Go ahead.
And he's learning to speak the language of his children, which is something that especially, like I said, especially in the 60s, dads just did not engage the way that Bob Parr is trying in this film.
Correct.
And the way that, dads are today. I mean, it's definitely a shift in gender roles within the marriage the past few decades or whatever. Just from men being more like involved in the day-to-day lives of children. I mean, there's always been exceptions, but it's a lot of it has really been mom really, it really is in charge, really like essentially manages the kids, and it's the dad who kind of comes in, wants like an overall input in what they're doing, but doesn't want to micromanage anybody.
Right.
So it's really interesting seeing a character like Mr. Incredible go through that, especially in a kids film, and as Jack's powers develop, it's a pretty clear allegory to me for special needs.
Yes.
To a certain extent. I mean, whether it's autism or any other sort of thing, Jack communicates in a very random and different way, and the whole family adjusts and learns how to communicate with him, and to live with him, and without once like even showing frustration, and like just like and if it's frustration, it's because he travels to another dimension and and speaks in their heads until he reemerges from the beyond. The kids don't have really as much of an arc in this movie, but like you said, it's not really their story. They are supporting characters to Helen now. So they don't really change in this one as much as in the first one, simply because in the first one they went from don't ever use your powers to sometimes you need to use your powers. And that's the same thing here. It's like, don't use your powers until you need to use your powers. But I'm assuming this third film will mostly have to be the kids' stories.
Well, and like I said, I think that using this story to play into the larger world, to reestablish supers in this larger place, I think something had to be put on the back burner. And I hate to say it was the kids. In a way it was. And it's not that they didn't have anything interesting to do. They certainly did. But, Dash, in the first one was like acting out in class. He wanted to show that he was the best. He's a show off. He's, this is going against his personality. He's very much his father's son. And then like by the end of it, they allow him to join the track team, and he's, sort of showing off, and you know what I mean? Like he's getting this thing that he always desired. Likewise, Violet, who, I think pun intended, is invisible to the boy that she likes, at the end is self-confident enough to ask him out. And I think that there are clear arcs for these characters. And in this film, neither one of them really had that much of an arc, like you said. Maybe Violet more so than Dash, but at the end of the day, Violet kind of ended this film in the exact same spot that she ended the first one. But maybe that's not a bad thing, because it's still interesting to watch. I don't know if that makes sense, and maybe I'm disregarding everything I learned about screenwriting, but the fact that they didn't have an arc, it bothered me, but it didn't bother me. I feel like I'm contradicting myself a lot in this review.
It bothered me initially, but then I sat back and looked and said, no, everything they all did in this movie made sense. And ultimately, I respect movies and I enjoy movies a lot more when they do that. There's always this initial feeling of, there's more they could have done. But then I think, like for instance, there's not really as much, maybe there is, but the action in this film, I felt like there was less than the first film.
Yeah, definitely.
But having a really big third act again made a lot of sense in that film, because that's everyone sort of coming to fruition. The kids being allowed to use their power, like to Dash to run as fast as he can, and Violet gaining the confidence to be able to make the force fields, and just that was all very, very in line with what needed to go on in the story.
And to an extent, Syndrome organized it that way to showcase himself. Yeah. It had to be big. Yeah.
Yeah. And in this one, there's not as much of that at the end. And I think what I was most disappointed in terms of the action, and maybe other people will be too, there's not a lot of Dash running in this movie. And I was kind of looking forward to that. I recently, I was on Facebook, and I put out, and maybe it was on Twitter, I don't know. I'm not on Facebook that much, except for right now in this live stream. But I put out a post and I just said, why is it that it's 2018 and the last movie to show me an exciting super speed sequence was from 2004? Yeah.
No, it's true.
It really, and there's a couple of people who are like, oh, what about Quicksilver and X-Men in Days of Future Past? And I was like, okay, well, that wasn't that impressive. That was just sort of slow motion.
Right.
That was kind of cool, but I wouldn't call that exciting.
I think the way that I would sort of categorize it would be with Quicksilver. It's like, technically proficient. It's like, okay, this is
Sure.
really cool on a visual effects standpoint and whatever. But with Dash, like you actually get the sense of like
Danger and excitement.
yeah,
And
you kind of feel like you're running fast.
yeah,
With Quicksilver, he's moving fairly slow. I mean, normal speed.
sure.
So we don't get the exhilaration. We don't get the adrenaline rush
No.
that we do when when Dash is running on water. Like when he
Right.
first, like you hear his footsteps, and then all of a sudden they just disappear into splashes, and
Mhm.
like that is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe I think people might be kind of put off by that,
Yeah.
but again, it's in service of the story.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah.
Everything is story driven. It's not in service of some cheap sequence like, hey, let's have an action scene here.
Right.
So
Well, because the
ultimately-
action sequences, like you said, are kind of few and far between.
right. They use their powers only when it made sense. So
Yeah.
that might be a letdown to some people, but I think it was really bold of them to go this heavy on story over action in the follow up, in a long anticipated follow up to a really action driven first film. And again, like I said, there's going to be this third film, and I hope it showcases their powers more. Presumably they'll be older, and presumably if we're following the pattern here, it's going to feature the kids up front. And so there's going to be a lot more cause for showcasing powers, because if nothing else, the kids are less mature and less cautious than their parents are. And so they're going to use them anyway.
Yeah.
But especially if it's a big third film, I want to see some more running. I want to see, I want to see Dash Point.
Dash Point. Yes.
Yeah, but yeah, 3.5. I mean, I couldn't go as high as a 4 to where I was like, oh, this is like really, really good. But I certainly respect it for all the choices that they made. I just think it's a little less exciting than the last film, so that's kind of why I docked the score a little bit. But yeah, that's how I feel about The Incredibles too.
Yeah, it's still highly recommended from me. Obviously, I feel like if you're interested in seeing this, you've already seen it at this point. But if you haven't, if you've been on the fence, if you've never seen the first one, which where have you been? Watch the first one and then go see this one. I think they're both worth your time, and like I said, the first one still holds up. So it's not like you're going to be sitting through it and going like, oh my gosh, the animation's awful and blah blah blah. Like it still looks good. It still is a good movie. And in my book, it's one of the best Pixar movies ever. And this doesn't quite reach those heights, but it's still better than a lot of the trite that comes out these days. So I would highly recommend it. I think, I think for me, maybe the best thing I can say about it is they did not betray the rules established, or not the rules. Let me say it like this: they didn't betray the philosophy established in the first film, meaning that the family unit is still the most important thing here, and the love between these people still feels genuine and still is the crux of this entire thing. And they never once decided okay, what we're going to do is we're going to make Helen look really good and Bob look really bad, and we're going to make the kids look really, whatever. It was all everybody is still as lovable as they always have been. And so that's how I'd phrase that. They did not betray the philosophy of the first film.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
absolutely. That is The Incredibles 2, everybody. It is still in theaters right now. It will be for a good long while.
Yes.
And I hope it continues to do well.
Yeah, me too.
Let's move on to do you want to do we want to say goodbye to the live stream, folks?
Yeah, we could say goodbye to you guys.
We need to say goodbye to the live stream, folks. Thank you for watching the live stream. We'll try and do this more often, especially if you guys like it. Seems like I got some positive feedback on the chat for the live stream.
Sweet.
So we're going to say goodbye to the live stream people and the YouTube people who are also watching later right now. There is a full version of this show that we're about to keep doing right now.
Yeah.
If you want to see the full video version of our show, You can support us on Patreon. Oh my God. Patreon, patreon.com/HooperCast. It's just $1. It's $1 for the rest of the video episode.
Yep.
Not too bad.
Not too bad.
Of course, you can support us on all these other platforms you see here on YouTube, SoundCloud, Facebook, obviously right here. You can follow us on Twitter at HooperCast, at Dustin Weldon, at Connor_Dempsey, or find us on Blogger or Tumblr if you still use those platforms. And on Letterboxd to a lesser extent, because I'm pretty lazy about it. I might be less lazy about it if I had a Letterboxd Pro account. The big thing about Letterboxd Pro account, Dustin, is that you get a ton of cool perks. You get a customized oh God, what's the name? What's the word I'm looking for? A customized view of your past year's films. There's a lot of things you can do with a pro account that you can't do with a free account. I mentioned it in the pre-roll of this episode. Of course, the live stream people don't know that because it didn't roll, but everyone watching later knows exactly what those perks are. And they also know about the contest to get the 1-year pro account upgrade or extension. So if you already got the pro account, you already paid for it, and you're feeling cheated that now you're not a part of this process, but you are. Because we'll just tell them to give you the next 12 months free. Yeah. And if you don't have the pro account, you can try it for a year free. All you got to do is email us at hoopercast@gmail.com and email us the code word and the subject line and your Letterboxd username to be eligible. So, and the code word, by the way, I'm going to tell you after the live stream's gone. Oh. So watch us on YouTube.
That's a tease.
That's a tease, but no freebies, no freebies for this letterbox. So, anyways, I'm going to play this little in between graphic here, and we will see all of the rest of you guys later.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're still going. Stream's gone. So let's move on to the rest of the show.
Let's do it.
Sorry, people in the chat. Someone booed us.
Womp womp.
Sorry. Yeah, we got y'all should do shout outs, and then I said we're gonna reveal the thing after the jump, and they went boo. You gotta leave them wanting more. That's for sure.
Yes, you do.
The code word, by the way, for that letterbox stuff is Amelia, go to bed. Amelia, go to bed. Oh, did you hear that?
I heard it.
Silence.
Sounds like nothing.
Sounds like nothing. That means the message is being received. Hopefully the message will be received by me in my inbox, and then you can get the perks that I just mentioned. Mm-hmm. But I digress. Let's move on. Let's get the rest of the show going. Dustin.
Yes.
Let's talk about Hunt for the Wilderpeople, because we talked a number of episodes ago about What We Do in the Shadows.
Yes.
The film, that is, not what you and I do in the shadows.
Yeah, we did not talk about that. Yeah.
No, we don't ever talk about that.
No.
That ain't nobody's business.
Ain't nobody's business.
Ain't nobody's business.
What goes on in private houses.
Oh, see, what I do in the shadows, it's outdoors in the shadows.
Oh, well.
Are yours indoor shadows?
Mine are indoor shadows. You just have to have harsh lighting. That's the trick.
I prefer total darkness for my shenanigans.
No. You have to have a harsh light, and then you just stand back.
Of course.
And you just disappear into it.
Why is your window frozen? Oh, it's because I'm covering you with the... God, if I cover your Skype window at all, it freezes your picture. Good thing I have 2 monitors, because now this one is just for you, Dustin.
Okay.
This one's just for you. You get your own little... You're on my screen 3 times now.
Yay.
3 times a lady.
3 times a Dustin.
So the next film, as we said, is Hunt for the Wilderpeople. Yeah. This is also directed by Taika Waititi. This was made after... Now, I don't know why this is doing this. I'll have to fix this slideshow thing in just a second. But, God, why is it doing that? Seriously, it's going to make me so angry. Let me get rid of the Incredibles folder. It's doing like this flash frame crap. Anyways, that should fix it. So, yeah. This was after What We Do in the Shadows, right? Isn't wasn't this his most recent one?
Yes.
Before Ragnarok?
This was 2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
This stars Sam Neill and a bunch of people from New Zealand.
Yes, and that's about it.
And that's about it. It's a very small cast, and to reflect how small the cast is, there was only about 5 or 6 good pictures on IMDb, so this slideshow is going to be pretty small loop. So,
fine.
But this is about a 13-year-old kid named Ricky who's in foster care. He's bouncing from home to home, and he finally lands with what's it, Heck, and then his wife's name, and
Bella.
and Bella. Okay. But basically, through a series of events, he ends up running away. Ricky does. He finally found a home that he liked. Something happens at the home. He runs away, and then he ends up with Heck, who didn't really pay him much attention. He was never abusive to him. He was just uninterested in Ricky. And now so he goes out in the woods looking for him and finds him. But then through a series of events, it is thought by the authorities that Heck has kidnapped Ricky and is molesting him.
Yes.
So there's a big manhunt going on for the two of them.
Yep.
Heck has a reason why he might very well go to prison for a long time if he's caught, even if he tries to clear it up. And Ricky just doesn't want to go back into the system because the woman in charge of the program is like his mortal enemy.
Yes.
And it's a fun little story about about these two characters essentially learning to depend on each other and, to love each other even and to look after each other. And it's a nice little tale. I don't know, Dustin, what'd you think of this movie?
I thought it was a really good story that I never could get 100% invested in.
Yeah. What did you give it? What did you rate this one?
I'd give it a 3. It's fine. So it's 3 stars, but maybe just barely. And it's not that this is a bad movie. It's certainly technically proficient. It's certainly interesting. It's certainly well shot and well performed. There's just something about it that I couldn't quite get a hold of. I don't know. I guess it was a little disappointing because What We Do in the Shadows, you and I both loved that movie. And so I was really hoping for that same kind of zany humor. And while it shows up in flashes, this feels a little bit more like, this is a bad, comparison, but a little more like mainstream, like Spielberg-ish, right? Like where it's kind of overly sentimental sometimes. But, with Spielberg, it works. And with this film, it felt disingenuine. I never felt the actual compassion between characters that I felt like I should have. I don't know. What did you think, man?
I gave this film. Sorry, I had to get off this. I have to click everywhere to get this hotkeys to work. I gave this film a 2.5 star.
Okay.
I didn't really like this. It didn't piss me off, but I wouldn't quite call it fine because I found it kind of dull. And maybe the humor just didn't work for me. It just didn't hit. And like I said, we were coming off of What We Do in the Shadows, which is hit after like joke after joke, genius, just a genius premise. Yeah. And I think that we were sort of riding high off of that. And then we come in here and this is definitely a sweet film. Sure. But I've seen a lot of sweet films that I like better than this. I guess I was a little bit let down. The story, especially in the third act, escalates in kind of a ridiculous way. It does. So kind of, and I don't care enough about the characters at that point to sort of go with it. Yeah. The kid's okay. He's an okay actor, but he's not like, if he was mind blowing, I probably would have connected to him more. Sure. But I sort of felt like he wasn't because he didn't take a lot of things so seriously. I felt like I shouldn't take him seriously. I think Sam Neill is good in here. It's definitely a good role for him. Yeah. I just sort of wish the film was sort of up there with him, but he did a good job, especially with what he was given. Yeah. The story's there. It just doesn't really land for me. And I think if people want to watch this, though, they can expect a neat dynamic between the two of them, and perhaps maybe that'll sustain them. But I don't think that this movie, I don't think that the premise in and of itself is enough to see this film over any other essentially father-son type story.
Yeah. I think for me, maybe part of it is I liked the kid and I thought that his story was fine. And I think it makes complete and total sense. Like, okay, after what happens and he's going to go back into the system, I'm going to run away. That makes complete sense to me. What doesn't make as much sense is Sam Neill then also deciding to run away. And I guess I couldn't quite get behind that. Maybe I missed something, but I couldn't quite get behind his motivation to be there. So the fact that they were both there was A, extremely coincidental, and B, just felt more like the screenwriter saying like, oh, and which I guess is Taika Waititi, is saying like, okay, we have to get these two people together somehow where they're alone and they can have conversations. But I felt like once they were alone, the two voices were distinct until like they started to kind of merge, and it was like Sam Neill was no longer the straight man, but he was his own zany, brand, just like the kid. And so I felt like it almost needed Sam to continue being this like no nonsense, no joke, whatever kind of guy throughout the film. But I guess, I don't know. I guess it never felt like they clicked for me. Yeah. So while they both do a really great job on their own, they never quite had the chemistry that I wish they had. Like I could see, I know this is the easy choice, but I could see instead of Sam Neill having like a Nick Offerman type, right? Where you have, this stoic, whatever kind of guy who does have these layers of sentimentality, so that when you do get let in, like you're in. And I felt like Sam Neill had a wall up the whole time and then became zany in a weird way, but his wall was still up. And I don't know, it just never clicked for me. So while I think there's some funny moments, there's certainly some laugh out loud moments here. But yeah, it just never clicked. It just felt like all these pieces that it's almost like you have a puzzle. It's 100-piece puzzle, and like you get them in the right places, but you never actually put them together. Like you leave gap in between all the pieces, and it's like, I can tell what the picture is, but wouldn't it be better if we just put the pieces together and then it was done? So that to me was sort of how this was.
Yeah, dude, that's pretty good description of it. I mean, it just feels like it's missing something.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah. It just needs like the final step.
Yeah.
We just got to click them into place and we're done.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't say too much more about this, It's
Me
just,
neither.
it's I don't know what else to say. It's just like, okay, it's yeah, it's whereas we both said we would want to see a sequel to What We Do in the Shadows.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, not this film would even get a sequel, but like, I don't really have a desire to watch this again, but I would watch What We Do in the Shadows,
several more times.
Yeah, a few more times.
Yeah, and you're right. It just feels overly long. This is almost 2 hours long, hour 45. It just feels like, yeah, it just takes so long. It's a slow burn, that's for sure. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's Hunt for the Wilderpeople.
Yeah.
I rented this at the library. Where'd you watch it, Dustin?
It is available on Hulu. So,
okay.
Yeah, Hulu. I guess I had to search pretty deep for it, but it's on there. You won't find it scrolling through. You have to actually search it. So,
right.
But yeah, it's there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, all right. Well, let's see. We've been going for about 48 minutes.
Yeah.
Do you want to do something small? You want to do one of the smaller films you were talking about?
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah. Tell me about Only the Brave.
Only the Brave. Okay, cool. So Only the Brave is, I'm going to pull it up on IMDb really quick while I'm talking, just so I have the names all in front of me. So Only the Brave was released last year, 2017, directed by Joseph Kosinski, who you guys may know is the director of Tron Legacy and Oblivion, which I'm a huge fan of Tron Legacy. I don't know that some of the visual effects hold up, but for me, I loved the movie, and Oblivion was okay, but yeah. So fairly solid director, I suppose. It is the story of the Granite Mountain Hotshots. So this is based on a true story. It stars Josh Brolin, Miles Teller, Jeff Bridges, Jennifer Connelly, Taylor Kitsch, and a bunch of other people.
A lot of actors that have been in other things we've reviewed lately.
Yes, correct.
Weird.
And they're all phenomenal here, except for Miles Teller, and I'll get into that later.
How could I guess that that's where you were going with?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, buddy. So for those of you guys who don't know the story of the Granite Mountain Hotshots, they are a group of firefighters. They were initially municipal firefighters that became hotshots, the first in the country to do so. I don't want to spoil it. I know it's a true story, but I don't want to spoil it. But nonetheless, they encounter a fire that so since they do wildfires, these fires are completely unpredictable. They're very difficult situations, and these are like the best of the best of the best. And they encounter a fire that is very confusing and very strange, and it just seems like nothing's going right. But although that's the true story, what this film does is it saves that for the climax. So you've got the story of how they became hotshots. How did they go from firefighters, in the municipal government to this specialized group of hotshots, and they are. It's a very interesting story, and super well told. I really loved a lot about this movie. I thought, like I said, great story, well paced. The performances are pretty much all great. In fact,
Banging on your desk.
I know. This is a great movie.
Sir.
In fact, so Jennifer Connelly here plays the wife of Josh Brolin, and typically in movies like this, you have like the wife who's at home and like talks to her husband on the phone, and so that kind of character never really does anything.
Kind of like this actually reminds me of Everest with Keira Knightley being at home in bed the entire time.
Correct.
That's actually. I don't want to pat myself on the back, but that was a pretty good pull.
That was a very.
It's a good example. Thank you.
I only saw the trailer, but that's exactly what it was in the trailer.
Yeah, well, it's accurate.
Yeah, exactly. So, so usually that's how that goes. But Jennifer Connelly actually has something to do here, which is really nice, really refreshing, that they managed to give a bunch of these different characters actually something to do. Now, let me talk just very briefly about Miles Teller. I'm not a huge Miles Teller fan. I like Whiplash. That's not because of him. That's because of the director.
J.K. Simmons.
And J.K. Simmons.
Yeah.
I do think that J.K. has a way of elevating people around him. Yeah. But it's the writing, it's the direction. Miles himself is really hit or miss, mostly miss. In this movie, he has a few good moments, but there's a couple moments that are supposed to be really, emotional moments that he cannot pull off.
Mm-hmm.
Very rarely. I'm not the biggest stickler for performance, right? So a lot of people will be like, I didn't buy this at all, and I'm like, yeah, it was fine. I find myself able to invest in actors as their characters pretty easily. Even if it's Tom Cruise, somebody that I know beyond as a celebrity, right? But with Miles Teller in this movie, and those emotional scenes, I literally couldn't buy it. And he's sitting across from, say, a Josh Brolin or a Jeff Bridges, and you're just like, this is two different leagues. This is completely different. Miles Teller is sort of like the best guy in the performing arts program at your college. And so sometimes he'll surprise you, and sometimes he's the best guy at your performing arts college, and that's not much. So, yeah. Um, I do recommend this movie, though. I think, even though Miles Teller is a big part of this movie, it's really an ensemble movie, and he's just kind of a piece of the puzzle. So you're able to just roll with it. And just wait for Josh Brolin to show back up or Jeff Bridges to show back up, and I do recommend this movie. I think that it's a good story. If you're not familiar with the Granite Mountain Hotshots, you can Wikipedia it, but you can also watch this movie. It does a really great job of presenting the danger that these firefighters are in, and the heroism, of what they do. Now, for you, Hooper, because I know that you kind of like these movies about heroes, and especially like lay heroes. So I would say for you, I think you would like a lot about this movie. I think you'll be sort of in the same boat as me, where you're going to nitpick a few things here and there. But this is a good movie. I would give it 3 stars. That's fine. It's not a waste of your time. It seems like most of the movies that we review here just get an it's fine. So it's certainly not a waste of your time at all. But yeah, I think, if you're looking for a story about heroes, if you're looking for a story about people who are willing to give everything to help other people just in the name of, goodness, and I think that you'll like this movie. So yeah, I mean, aside from a couple scenes with Miles Teller that I can't buy, it's a really interesting movie and very entertaining, and at times, just really well crafted. I've heard it called the sleeping best picture from last year. I definitely would not go that far, but it's definitely worth your time. So if you have a moment to check this out, this is not streaming anywhere, unfortunately. So you'll have to either go to Redbox or go to your local library, or I don't know, go to Best Buy and buy it. But it's worth your time. You're not gonna be disappointed, but you're not gonna be like 3 years from now going, man, what a great movie. So yeah, it is what it is, right?
I laugh like that doesn't ever happen with any movie, but that happens a lot, where I just sit there for a little bit and I go, man, what a great movie.
Yeah. Right. Well, like I said, when we were just talking about The Incredibles, it's the same thing. The Incredibles 2 made me realize how great The Incredibles was. And it's like every time I think about it, I'm like, man, that was so fantastic. And with this, certainly not 14 years later, I'm not going to be thinking about Only the Brave. But this sort of falls in line with those Peter Berg movies, like Patriots Day or Deepwater Horizon. It's blue collar workers who are, very skilled at what they do and doing what they do to help people. And if you kind of buy into that and you like that a lot, you'll like this movie. If you do like that, I would recommend Patriots Game well over this, because I love Patriots Game, but yeah, Only the Brave is good as well. So yeah.
What did you say your star rating was?
3. It's fine.
Okay, got it. Middle of the road.
Yeah, it's just middle of the road.
Okay. Well, I think that's going to do it, Dustin, for this this iteration of the show. Thanks to everyone who watched us live. Thanks to everyone who watched on Patreon, and also thanks to the YouTube audience and the podcast audience.
Yeah.
If you're listening on the podcast, there's a lot more to this show. There's a lot of visual elements and possibly even a monthly live stream, Dustin, if this thing came out okay.
Yeah.
But definitely keep engaging with the show. There's lots of places you can reach us on social media. Of course, all of these places, SoundCloud, Patreon, Facebook, Twitter, Blogger, Tumblr, YouTube, and then the various podcast platforms. There's a lot of them: Stitcher, Radio Public, Apple Podcasts, Castbox, Pocket Casts, Breaker, and Google Podcasts and Spotify. Yeah, lots of places to reach us. But yeah, We are the HooperCast. Thanks for watching. Get out there, go see some good movies. We'll see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. The bat time being 3 a.m. and the bat channel being YouTube.
Yes.
Yes. But thanks. Thanks, everybody. Goodbye. Have a good weekend.